Hey, everybody, thanks for joining us. I really appreciate you taking the time. And hopefully you'll find this conversation will teach you a little bit about not only cash flow, but also technologies that will help you manage your cash flow, make your business more productive, and hopefully increase your profits. My name is Gene Marks. I am a certified public accountant. I run a firm outside of Philadelphia. I also do a lot of writing as well. So I write every week for The Hill, for the Washington Times, for the Guardian, for Forbes, and for Entrepreneur and the Philadelphia Inquirer. So Yvonne, I got you beat, right? I mean, you're just at the next web. But yeah, so I write a lot of different places. And I cover a lot of different topics, but my love and my first love, in fact, it's what my business does, has to be about technology. And I also, because I'm an accountant and a CPA, for me, cash flow and managing cash is very, very important. So we're going to have a conversation now for the next anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes with a few great experts that I brought in to talk about cash flow and technologies. And I'm going to have them introduce themselves in just a minute. But before I do, let me, first of all, thank our sponsor for this presentation. It's Plastiq, which is plastiq.com. That's Plastiq with a Q, Plastiq. Plastiq is a company I've been working with for the past few months. What they do is they enable any companies to pay any of their bills using a credit card. So you can go to any vendor, and even if they don't accept a credit card, you can pay your bills through Plastiq, and basically they'll just send a check to your vendor. So that way you can get all the benefits of using your credit card, like the points that you earn, taking advantage of the float if you want to. If you have international transactions as well, where it's much easier to use a credit card instead of a bank transfer, you can do all of that using Plastiq, and they'll take care of the actual payments to your vendors. So great service, pretty cool service. I'm glad to be working with them, and I'm really appreciative they're sponsoring this conversation. So now, let's move on to our panel first. Before I maximize the screen, I'll keep everybody's sort of name and title here, but we'll just go down the list. I'm going to start with John Horner. John is the VP of Software Consulting, not Console, Consulting at Miles Technologies. John, tell me a little bit about what Miles does.
Yeah, hi. So Miles Technologies, we're a 23-year-old organization. We have 400 full-time staff members and provide nationwide business technology service, IT services, software development, marketing, web design, and other services around business and technology. We also have an all-in-one ERP product, Striven, that we've developed. It's been a great success. It handles financial management, CRM, project management, HR, and a lot more for that SMB market. So very happy to be here on the panel today.
Yeah, I can say Striven itself, which is part of Miles Technology, is like they're part of this trend of integrated systems. We see a lot of suites coming out from companies, and Striven is like you buy it. It kind of answers the question a lot of my clients have asked me for years, which is like, Gene, why don't I have one software that like does it all? And that is what Striven does. John, how long have you been with the company?
Yeah, so I've been with Miles Technologies for over 15 years now, and head up our software and strategic consulting services.
Wow, that's great. And are you working from home or are you in the office? Looks like you're in the office.
In the office today. I've been working from home probably a little more than half the time, but most of our employees are working from home right now.
All right, that's good. And how's life been in the office? Are you is everybody wearing masks and staying away from each other?
Absolutely. We've got all our safety protocols in place, keeping ourselves distanced from each other. So we're keeping safe.
All right, cool. All right, well, we're going to get back to you. I have a lot of questions for you. Yvonne, you're next. Yvonne Mehta. Now, you are speaking to us from New Delhi, correct? And
yes.
you write for the Next Web. And I know we spoke a little bit before we started out here, but you're a lifelong journalist, aren't you?
Not really. I mean, I started my career as a software engineer.
Okay.
I worked in software for almost 5 years, and then I've been while I was doing my software engineering, I started my own blog. I started freelancing for publications here in India, and then I switched to full-time journalism. So I've been a journalist for over 5 years now. Been at the Next Web for more than 2 years, and I've been covering all things in Asia, particularly India, and AI, security, hardware, apps.
That's cool. Yeah, the Next Web is it's one of the sites I go to all the time. It's a great resource for technologies. Do you review products as well, Yvonne, or do you just write about them? You do.
I do, yeah. At time to time, I do review products. I mean, India is a very busy smartphone market. So there are a lot of interesting products coming up and we have a lot of great budget products as well. So I started time to time I dabble into them. These are not your regular products which might be going out in every market, but this is some India specific budget products, but these are great, and I really wish that these products are available everywhere.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, India has, it's the world's largest democracy, a huge entrepreneurial country. And, you and I were talking earlier about, like, say, delivery apps that we use. And I mean, whatever we've got here in the US, it's there 10 times in India, and I think vice versa. So I'm assuming a lot of stuff that you write about is it's a lot of cross meaning between the US and India. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. And I mean, a lot of US-based companies or companies founded in US, including Google, Facebook, and Amazons of the world, are here in India, and they have large investments here. So, I mean, I need to keep a market on what they keep an eye on what they do in the US market, and as compared to that, what they are applying some of the principles in India to modify to the market.
Got it. Great. Okay. Tom Burdon is the CMO, Chief Marketing Officer at Dade Systems. Tom, thank you for joining us. What does Dade do?
We simplify the accounts receivable process to improve the day sales outstanding and the whole accounting process around receiving payments for banks and banks selling to their corporate customers and directly to corporate customers throughout North America. So we really simplify that AR process for the finance and accounting teams.
That's great. Now, is this your company, or you're the chief marketing officer there? So how big a company is this?
We are I would describe us as a 10-year-old startup. We started 10 years ago. I've been with the company over half of that time. I did not start the company. The two founders are still involved with the company, but I came in 5 years ago to help build out our channel sales and our marketing opportunities. So been familiar with the company for actually the founder's predecessor company. When he sold that, I became familiar with him. So I've been involved with the lineage of this company for over 20 years. It's got that steep of a background in terms of payment processing and what we provide.
Got it. All right, that's great. So guys, like, here's sort of the rules of the game as we have this conversation. I'll be asking you guys some questions because we've got a technology writer here. So Ivan, I'm going to want to hear your thoughts on stuff that you're writing about. Small business technologies, business technology that you think will help. We've got somebody that's John, who works at a technology implementer, really. And so I'm kind of curious to see what hot technologies you're seeing that's helping small businesses do their thing. And I'm going to start with Tom, because we're going to dig into Dade Systems. I do want to talk about collections and facilitating accounts receivable with you, Tom. Ivan, John, even as I ask Tom questions, Ivan, you're a journalist, so as I ask if you've got questions about what your other panelists are talking about, jump in. There's no PC here. You don't have to be any polite or whatever. Just jump in if you've got some questions, okay? And guys, feel free to talk as long as you want. If I'm getting bored, I'll tell you, but hopefully that won't happen. I think my wife tells me when I'm bored. All right, Tom, let me start with you, okay? So let's go back to Dade Systems. So first of all, do you sell to banks or do you sell to businesses? And if you're selling to businesses, and what type of businesses are buying from you, and what do they need when they're buying from you?
Sure. So let me clarify that. Yes, we sell directly to corporate businesses. We have distribution, manufacturing, utilities, insurance, pretty much a cross section of every major industry segment, and then we can subdivide it from there. But really, any business that is accepting payments, or receiving payments rather, not accepting them, receiving payments, we have a solution for. So as the complexity of that business changes and they add new payment channels, so they may traditionally still in the US, sorry, Ivan, in the US, still 50% of the businesses like to pay with checks. So check is still very, very popular.
Amazing.
But then you have electronic payments, you have payment portals, you have credit card payments, you have wire transfers, you have all these other payment inputs or channels that are coming in. And what our software does is it replaces the human who he or she is processing those payments and uses AI to read and interpret that payment and apply it correctly, and then send a what's called a posting file or an update file back to that billing system or that ERP system of that customer. So our customers range in size down to somebody who's a field technician picking up payments all the way up to a multi-billion-dollar corporation that's got multiple offices in different regions throughout the country and in Canada. So lots of different complexities around that. And what we often find, Gene, is ultimately the way most businesses progress through these payment channels and volumes is they add more people. And so adding people is not sustainable for them. So ultimately, they're faced with a technology or reviewing a technology solution to be able to enable that. And companies like Dade Systems can provide that technology to do a couple of things. Number one, we can take all of the payment channels. So even if they're using a lockbox or a bank today for their payments, we can still process that lockbox. Actually, it's one of my ideas for you in terms of how to do that, is by reducing the keying that those lockbox companies do. All we needed them to do is scan the payment and the remittance. We don't need them to key the data. Keying the data actually creates a lot of inefficiency for the customer who's receiving those payments.
So let me jump in here. So just as a specific example, you mentioned earlier that 50% of the companies in the US are still getting paid by check, which I could assure you is very much what I see in the real world. You know, I mean, I have about 600 clients in my company. They're mostly in the Philly area. A lot of them are privately owned businesses, B2B companies, family-owned companies in industrial parks and, you know, office complexes. And you go into some of these places and it's like they're still operating as they have for the past 50 years, you know? So that does not surprise me. Now, a lot of them do have lock boxes, right? So they have, you know, if you've got, you know, you want to pay me, you send to a PO box, you know. So, you know, what would Dade do to help them? You know, like what is Dade's service for the typical client that has a lockbox on the receiving checks? Let's take that as the first example.
Sure, great question. And I want to come back to the bank because you asked me about a bank a moment ago, so I will come back to that.
Yep.
So what we would do is evaluate the customer's other payment channels. Today they're getting them only via the lockbox. So what we would do is suggest to them, you don't need to have the bank or that processor key those payments any longer. All they have to do is open and scan them, which significantly reduces the time for them to process those payments because they don't have a human keying in the data. So that's number one. That reduces their cost over 80%. Their bank or lockbox provider may not like that, but ultimately it will help the company. Secondarily, 50% of those payments are being received in other methods. Well, what are those other methods? Mm-hmm. Most common is electronic payments and ACH payments. Those, Gene, are a nightmare for the small business or for any business. Mm-hmm. And they're a nightmare because, yes, they get the deposit received at their bank electronically, but all of the remittance information comes detached from that. It's either an email or they're going to a website, downloading that data. And you know what they're doing? They're printing it out. Somebody's manually keying that data in.
Literally, that's literally what's happening.
So our solution uses AI to read all of that information, whether it's an email, whether it's an embedded document in an email, whether it's an attachment. We can read and interpret that data and use technology to apply that payment as opposed to a human.
When you say apply the payment, do you mean apply the payment within the company's accounting system? So if they have QuickBooks or Epicor, Dynamics or something like that, that's where the payment application is going?
Yeah, so how it actually works is we take what's called a load file of all of their open receivables into the Dade Pay, that's our product name, into our Dade Pay solution. It's a cloud-based solution. So we load in the open receivables for Gene Marks
Right.
Limited on a
Right.
daily basis. As payments come in, whether those are scanned payments from the lockbox, whether those are electronic payments, we read and interpret that data. And since we have your open receivables, we use AI to read that. That's part of our proprietary AI engine. It
Right.
reads that data, and it knows that, for example, John Horner Incorporated is making a payment for $2,000, and we have all the open receivables. Well, our AI engine can read that and help either apply that payment fully without any human touching it, or if it needs some assistance, we'll match up everything that we can, and we'll just ask the payment processor to validate and confirm that payment.
Does that
But it
mean that you're
significantly
taking,
reduces the time.
does that mean that you're taking over the management of my receivables? So,
No, this
so-
is just a paper process. We don't touch the money. So the
well,
money
no,
is still going.
what I mean is that, say I give you a file of all of my open receivables, right? So now you've got it. Now as payments are coming in, you're automatically applying payments to those receivables, right? What about if I'm doing more invoices the next day? Am I sending you a file of those
Yes.
invoices in your? So what, most companies have like a receivables ledger and then their general ledger. And it seems to me like you're basically taking over the receivables ledger and handling the accounting for that, because I'm sending you my new invoices, you're applying payments to that, and that that's my receivables ledger now, which is under your supervision.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Not really our supervision. So let me just expand upon that 1 second
Sure.
to clarify for the attendees. It's really a 4-step process. Number one, we get your load file of all your open receivables. Then we receive all of the payments that are coming in. Those could be payment files from your lockbox provider. Those could be you forwarding emails. Those could be wire transfers that come in. Anyway, all of that information is captured by us. We then go through a validation process. That's step 3. We'll automate generally over 95% of that using AI. So we can match up to 95% of the invoice matching. And then at the end of that process, if we complete the posting file back to your billing system, so we're constantly updating your billing system, then tomorrow you just send us a new open receivable file.
I see.
And
I see.
And if it's a large company, we have several companies that'll send us billing files throughout the day, and we'll send them posting files throughout the day. So it's really dependent upon what your business is and what your cycle is on the billing and the receiving side.
So this helps out businesses most, I would assume, that have a relatively higher volume of invoicing that they're doing, right?
Correct.
And obviously, it will cut down on employee time or potentially eliminate the employee time who is keying in cash receipts and whatnot into receivables, as well as minimizing errors that are occurring. I'm assuming you're using like optical character recognition or some technology like that. So it's scanning in whatever remittances.
We are.
Right. And then that updates your receivables ledger. Then if I need to know, and then we're constantly updating between ourselves our receivables and the receivables that you're maintaining, so those balances are always in agreement. And then that provides just a much more productive and succinct way of managing your receivables, I guess, right? Cutting down on all the manual stuff.
That's correct. That's correct. It allows you to scale.
Yep, allows you to scale, right? So if you're that's a great point. So if you're a company that is like really looking to grow, you can grow, I'm sure, till millions of transactions. I'm assuming you've got larger corporations that you guys are dealing with, and also just to wrap that up is you don't get involved in the collections or anything. You're basically just doing the accounting, correct?
That's correct. We never touch the money, but we do have a collection capability within our solution that we can talk about later that actually pushes a payment request to the payer to allow them to capture a payment immediately. But that's a technology solution that we have available that really helps out on the collection side. But I do want to add one point. So I mentioned that we have banks that resell our solution. Most banks have lockbox, they traditionally provided lockbox processing, and it's all paper-based. So the reason that they've upgraded their infrastructure with a Dade Pay type application is now they can capture not only the lockbox side of the business, but also all the electronic for their corporate customers. So banks are very heavily vested in the corporate channel, obviously through corporate banking, and utilizes a solution such as ours to be able to help grow that business and offer more capability to their customers. As that bank goes down market, they can actually offer this solution such as a payment portal to a much smaller business to be able to allow them to accept payments online. So that is a capability that's available as you scale down to smaller businesses.
Got it. Am I oversimplifying or insulting your Dade by calling you like an accounts receivable management platform? Is that too simplifying what you do?
Yeah, we're really AR automation. So we're just
AR
taking a feed of the accounts receivable data. We're not a management. We don't handle the billing side of that or any of those kinds of things.
I see. That's
We
great.
take whatever the current billing practice is, we take that.
Got it. Ivan, what do you think of that stuff? I mean, is that something that you would write about? Oh, wait, you're muted. I'm sorry. Can you? For some reason, you're still muted. Can you unmute yourself? Let me see if I can. Gee, I'm not quite sure why I can't hear you. John, can you speak? Can I hear it? Let's see if I can hear you.
Yeah, Gene, I can hear you fine.
Okay, yeah. Ivan, we lost you for a second. I'm going to come back to you. Hopefully that'll fix itself up. We'll see in just a minute, okay? John, do you have any clients that use any type of AR automation? Like if you were talking to clients about something like this, do you think that would come as a shock to them?
No, not at all. I mean, we have many customers that are looking to automate AR in different ways. It sounds like Tom and Dade have a great solution there. When you talk about cash flow, right? There's different parts of accounts receivable, and our customers are really looking at each part of that. They're looking at the billing process and how can we automate getting those invoices out. The more time that elapses from the time a service or product is delivered to the time that invoice gets out, the more delay there is in cash flow, and then all the way through in terms of processing that payment, finding ways to make it easy. To get those payments in quickly, again, often using electronic means, and then finally that collections process. So many customers are looking to streamline, automate that. That part of it.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all. And it's just funny that you bring up about all the people that are still using cash checks, and in this country in particular, we are so far behind compared to some other countries that are so much more technology enabled and more digital payments and credit card and all that kind of stuff. As compared to here, it really does. It does blow my mind. John, what other technologies do you run into that that we can talk about that helps any size business really manage their cash?
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about managing cash, obviously there's a part of it that is just knowing your numbers, knowing how much cash there is. So accounting systems, you mentioned things like QuickBooks. We use Striven to make sure that you really have good real-time information about what you have right now in terms of open accounts receivable, in terms of forecast, what's due, when is it due, even forecast in terms of what kinds of revenue is out there. So I think that's a big piece. And then also, I mentioned a moment ago, the collections side of things. So making sure that as those invoices get out for those customers that are on payment terms, that they're being followed up on and paid in a timely manner without a lot of follow-up, without a lot of oversight in terms of making sure that there are notifications as soon as that invoice goes out. And what we find is that by using electronic means, using technology, web portals, and engaging those customers to already be inside of your platforms, it makes it so that they can pay easier through electronic means. So to eliminate the 50% of the customers that are using those checks, if you can already get them in your systems, that electronic payment is instantaneous. It doesn't need to follow trucks around and get processed. So we find a lot of people are using those portals to get paid.
What are your thoughts on like alerts and reminders? I mean, I know Striven has them, and I'm sure some of the other the applications you work with, where automatic reminders are going out if there's an overdue invoice. Do you think that's a good practice? The reason why I ask, some of my clients don't like it because they don't like these automatic messages going out to their customers. God forbid if there's a mistake or something like that. But what are your thoughts on those kinds of things?
Now, it's a great question. I mean, first off, I always say that I'd rather not have the reminder because I'd rather the customer before the reminder comes in. So the first thing you want to do is you want to make it very customers.
Wait, I'm getting some feedback, John. I'm sorry. Is there a? Let's try that again.
So the key is what you want to do is you want to make it easy for the customers to pay, so you never have the reminder in the first place.
Yeah.
So
yep.
the first thing that we like to do is find ways where as soon as a product or a service or something is delivered, make it so that that invoicing process is automatic and ideally in real time.
Right.
Even if you have net 10 terms, if you show that so they can pay as soon as they get the service, well, great. It eliminates that. But then beyond that, I do believe that those alerts and those reminders are valuable. Again, you don't want them to necessarily come across as menacing for that first reminder, but make sure that it's clear that something is due. And then from there, you need to make it easy to pay. Having that reminder that you can't take action on isn't valuable. You need a reminder that you can immediately take action on, make that payment. I think that's extremely valuable.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that too, and we don't do that very well in my company. Like we'll send out invoices, and right now we'll send like an email with a PDF, which is it's fine and it's better than mail, but we don't have on our emails like just an easy way to click to pay, and I need to do that, and I don't have a problem paying the credit card fees to do that, but let's address that, right? I mean, what are your thoughts on using credit cards in your business? And I mean, there's a fee involved in it. It's like, and for a lot of clients, it's not insignificant if your margins are low. But what impact does that type of thing do for your cash flow?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. And what we found is, one, it depends on who your customer is. If you're in B2C space, then it's just expected that you're going to accept credit cards. Right. In the business to business space, we found that many organizations don't accept credit cards. And what we've actually gone back and forth in terms of whether we accept credit cards or not. And we do, we have a small convenience fee that does get applied to credit card payments and does not get applied to ACH, electronic check payments.
Right. I don't know. I realize in the B2C world, most people accept credit cards, although it still drives. I go into convenience stores now, and Yvonne, I don't know if it's the same thing with you, in New Delhi, but like there's convenience stores here. There's a minimum credit card purchase. It's like $10 or something, and I don't know. I don't carry cash, so I don't wind up paying. Sometimes I've walked out of stores because I don't have any cash, and there's like a minimum credit card thing. Is that the same in New Delhi?
Not really. So here's one thing which is quite different from the US is not a lot of people carry cards here. Sure, there are credit cards, there are debit cards in India, but there are a lot more mobile phones in India, and we have something called the UPI, which is Unified Payments Payment Interface. What it does is it links your phone number to your bank account. So what your UPI address, like your bank account, becomes an identity for you in terms of payments. So say your mobile number is 12345, it becomes 12345 at the rate the bank's name or whatever service provider that is. So that is your UPI address, and if I know your UPI address, I can just pay you through an application developed by anyone.
So let me hold on for just a second. Say you're a business. How do you accept payments with that UPI address?
So you can have an address named Gene at UPI, and I can have an address named Ivan at UPI. So right. Ivan at UPI pays Gene at UPI. That's it.
So it's kind of similar to Venmo is here, I guess.
It is similar to Venmo. The thing is, this is directly linked to your bank account because a lot of people might not have credit cards, debit cards in India, but they would have a mobile phone. They would have, because we have cheap data rates now, right. They would have some kind of data activated, or maybe while doing payments, they can activate the data. And the transactions I've paid 5 rupees, which is just few cents, right. to any shopkeeper. A lot of times I don't carry cash, as you said. I might have run out of cash, so I find a shop that accepts those payments. They do it through that address. They have QR codes printed or everywhere in the shop, so you can just scan a QR code and just pay.
First of all, this is an enormous impact on cash flow for vendors. I mean, for any business. I mean, for example, again, I just last week I went to a convenience store near me and I wanted to buy a bag of potato chips. and that's all I really wanted, but there was the minimum credit card purchase of $10 and I didn't have any cash, and I could have easily have made payment, by that way. And not enough, that has an enormous impact on cash flow, because I can't be the only person walking out of a store and not making payments, which impacts a business's cash. On top of that, with COVID happening now, and people, they're potentially, are you transmitting COVID because you're using cash? And a lot of people are moving towards digital payments. Do you see that trend having a significant increase over the next few years?
Of course, UPI and all the cashless payments kind of started 2 years ago when we had this event called demonetization, when our Prime Minister Narendra Modi banned currency notes of 500 rupees and 1000 rupees. So, and they had a lot of volume in the market. So they were flushed out, new notes were coming in, but the cash inflow of those notes was slow. So what happened is people started using those applications either by choice, either or by force, and now the system has a lot of users using UPI or other mobile wallets and certain things.
Right.
And here's the thing: these businesses or these payment providers, they include Google, they include Facebook is
Apple
trying.
Pay. Yeah.
Apple Pay we don't have right now.
Okay.
We have Amazon Pay based on UPI. Google Pay, even Google Pay and Amazon Pay are pushing. They provide services in their application where you can find stores that accept UPI. So, like you were saying, you just wanted to buy a bag of chips. You were outside. I can go to that application and see, hey, there is a store less than like a few meters, less than a block away from me. I can go there. I can buy a bag of chips. I don't need to pay cash because they accept these payments. So we have these kind of information rolling out. The companies are eager to kind of give these kind of informations, and they are eager to get on board smaller shopkeepers and all. In India, grocery stores are also quite small. I mean, we don't have supermarkets altogether, and that was kind of an advantageous things. One of the advantageous things in COVID, that I can go to my grocery store nearby. It is open. I don't have to stand in line for hours. But I'll just get my turn in a few minutes. It's a small shop. I'll get my essentials, go back home.
Tom, you heard Ivan talking about, I mean, how, this is just all over India. People are using this like one service, and Google ties into an Amazon Pay, other, payment services. And that, so obviously we have a long way to go here in this country where we have one unified service. I mean, right? I mean, we have to choose from a whole bunch of different options, and that confuses a lot of business owners as to what to carry and what to support and what to do. But on a B2B basis, right, which is your market, what will it take for companies to stop using checks? I mean, it has such an impact on their cash flow, a negative impact in just overall check processing. And even if they don't use checks, a service like what Dade System provides is still, a great service that will, automate AR even more, but they're still using checks, half of them. What will it take? What will it take?
Well, that's a great question. There's a couple things. Number one, well, first of all, we handle C2B business, consumer to business, and B2B business. But in answer to your specific question, so the payer likes to hold on to the check because he or she gets to control the float time of that check. Well, check's in the mail, you'll get it, blah, 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 blah. Let me give you an illustration of one of our customers. They went from a check-based process to a payment portal for all of their new corporate customers. I'm sorry, for all their customers. So every one of their customers now, when they onboard them, they enroll them into the payment portal. And they give them the option to make a payment using ACH, so electronic, and they offer discounting for that. So going back to John's example of some discount over a net 10-day period, well, through our automation, we know that up through the 10 days, the invoice due amount is $1,000 less the 2%. On day 10, it's now $1,000. Well, what the company has done is they've stopped all all the check payments coming in with those ineligible discounts. So they've mandated all their new customers using the payment portal using ACH. That has simplified their process, improved their collectability to all of those unearned or those discounts that were ineligible. And more importantly, using someone like Plastiq, they can take a credit card payment now.
Right.
And so they can offer that payment now to that payer to say, if you don't want to pay with an ACH, pay with a credit card. So they've reconditioned their customer base to say, we're only going to allow you to pay this way. Now that's pretty extreme at one end of it. At the other end of it is what businesses are doing is they're recognizing that these check payments are going down and more of them are coming, the electronic payments are growing more rapidly. And what they're seeing is they're spending more time in their accounting process. So
Right.
they need to step up the automation for that. With respect to the C2B marketplace, you'd be amazed by the number of utilities and telcos and other companies that don't allow ACH payments just because it's too hard for them to handle and manage. They rather take it through a credit card because to them it's easier to process. Well, using a solution such as Dade Pay, they can eliminate all that by having one unified process, and more importantly, they can reduce some of those credit card fees associated with that. So there's really a dynamic going on in the marketplace where as that check volume slowly declines, increases to more electronic channels, you're going to see payers be more accustomed to paying that way. And then on the forefront, or as we're on the emergence of some real-time payment capabilities using ACH and some of those other capabilities, businesses are more focused on supporting those channels. So
Right.
they have to have some infrastructure to be able to accept those real-time payments, which is another solution or another way that Dade Pay can provide value to them.
John,
Just to add to,
go ahead.
just
Go ahead.
to, just to add to Tom's point, and you guys would know as well that in India, just I mentioned UPI. I was just talking to a startup yesterday. They mainly deal in payment systems, including the point of sale machines where you put your credit card. What they're doing is they are digitizing those platforms. They're putting Android onto it, and they're providing. You can pay by UPI, you can pay by credit card, you can pay by debit card, you can pay by other means, net banking. As Tom was saying, startups I think all around the world, like Tom's startup, are trying to provide a unified platform to get away from legacy systems like checks or cash and unifying them in different digital methods. Different countries or different continents might have different the methods. Yeah, US has Venmo, PayPal, and credit cards. We have UPI, debit card, and net banking, and all that. That might be different. The methods might be different, but all of these startups are kind of aligning to get these startups on board where the customer can pay them through any digital channel.
I think, Ivan, it's right now, if you go into a coffee shop here in the US, first of all, I'm using my credit card most of the time. Like I'm literally pulling out a Plastiq, and Tom and John, you guys are probably the same way. And maybe it's a generational thing. I don't know, but I'm paying with a credit card. When I go into a specific, like I said, a coffee shop, what will bring it all together is probably hardware and software. It's a new generation of point of sale systems where it's very, very easy for the business owner to have all of the payment system just set up as part of their point of sale system, right? Like they don't have to worry about, I need to set up Apple Pay, I need to set up Google Pay, I need to set up Amazon Pay, I need to set up PayPal, I need to set up Square, Venmo, whatever. It's just when I buy my next point of sale system, it's got it all. So the customers can choose whatever they want to. Does that make sense, Ivan?
Yeah, it does. And I mean, you can have an example, even if you're using a credit card. Take an example of Apple Card.
Yeah.
What they launch is to lure customers into the new system while they can still use the old system of credit cards. You can carry that credit card, you can pay physically, but if you're an Apple Card customer, you will learn that you can still pay by your phone or the card. So you might switch to pay by using your phone and might use just your card sparsely, and you will shift to that system eventually, because there are benefits and they are providing you ease and convenience through that.
You
Go
know,
ahead, John.
and I think one of the things that you mentioned and we've talked about today is the simplicity and the ease of being able to make a payment, whether it's Plastiq and the person who is the business that's trying to make a payment can do it through whatever means they need, or it's me pulling out my iPhone and using Apple Pay, or the person that pulls out their credit card. Cash flow is about being able to do that. And if you don't have the $10 in cash, then it's easier for you to pay with your credit card, or that's what you're used to, or that's what you'd like to. And I think that's one of the keys here, is making it so that that end consumer or business that's making the payment is very simple for them to. And then on the back end, being able to process it and automate it and streamline handling whatever that payment is.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I just think that I mean, John, are you a credit card guy? I mean,
I use my credit card, but I've actually defaulted to using my phone. I use the Apple Pay and just touch that because it's easier for me and it's no contact.
Got it. And can you use Apple Pay pretty much everywhere, or do you walk into a fair share of stores that they don't accept it, or they look at you blankly?
Yeah, over half the places I can pay with my Apple Pay, and even online now with a lot of websites, portals, things like that, it just is an option. So it eliminates me having to type a credit card in or save a credit card just because it integrates with the phone.
Yeah, and I've got, and just so we know, and again, this impacts the businesses that are providing these services. I have an Android phone, I have a Samsung phone. So there's, Samsung Pay, there's Google Pay, there's different options that I would then have to go through getting it set up and then hoping that my store accepts it. Whereas differently, like in India, everybody accepts UPI. So I mean, it's not a, that's just not as hard to do. And then it brings up the next thing. Oh, go ahead, Ivan.
I mean, in India still there is obviously there is a friction that not as many stores might be accepting UPI as much as, say, US might have credit card machines.
Right.
But it is increasing, at least in metro cities, it is increasing your even smaller shops. Like we have small tea shops and people who sell used smokes, cigarettes.
Right.
They are accepting these because they stand near a big office where all the office workers come down, and they would ask them, do you accept Paytm? Do you accept Google Pay? Do you accept Amazon Pay? And after this person hears about that so much, and it's not a hard to set up thing, so someone will help him out, set this account up, and from the next day they are good to go. And to your point of Samsung Pay, I think Samsung has a great system called Loop Pay. You can just add your credit card there and tap your phone to any even older POS machines, and you can pay them.
Mm-hmm. You bring up a good point, Ivan, as well about I picture the small business owners in New Delhi are no different than New York or Philadelphia. I mean, it's not like we're all technology savvy. They just, they're used to doing it a certain way. But when their customers are coming to them every day and saying, do you accept this? And if they say no, customers are turning away. Any business is going to be like, well, this is, I got to start I got to learn it. I got to do it. So it's really, if your customers are asking for it, you've got to be able to provide it.
That was going to be my point, Gene. I mean, put yourself in the supplier or the owner of the business. He or she is trying to sell a product, and the worst thing you can say is, no, we don't accept that kind of payment. They want to close the deal, close the transaction. They want to make it as easily as possible. And so you look at a company over a history of time, they end up with all of these different payment channels that they're accepting payments. And some of them are more complex than other ones. So that's what gets us into the current situation that we're in, which is why somebody's looking to unify that payment flow standpoint. What Ivan's talking about totally makes sense, but as the provider of the products or services, now all of a sudden you have to be able to enable all of those different channels to be able to accept those payment types.
Yeah, it's another headache that you have to deal with. One other headache, John, and I have to ask you your comments on this is security through all of this. I mean, this is, we're dealing with people's cash, business owners' cash. what are your thoughts on is this, are these payment platforms secure in your opinion? Do you feel comfortable using, like you said, you use Apple Pay in different places? Do you think businesses should be secure? And Tom, I'll ask for your thoughts on that as well. But John, just what are your thoughts on security?
Yeah, I mean, security is tremendously important. One from both a real and a perceived perspective. So from the payment platforms, I mean, we've seen at looking at them, exploring them, there are some that are very highly secure, and there are some that may not be following best practices and things around PCI compliance. So it is important, whenever I either look at a business or individually I'm making a payment, I want to make sure I understand what platform is being used. Is it something like Apple Pay or PayPal, things that are very well written, well founded, well structured, or is it someone who may be taking my credit card information and just having it come through an email, which is definitely insecure, having it written down on a piece of paper. So security is extremely important, and you want to make sure you know who and what you're dealing with.
Yeah, and I think that you want to make sure that your customers also know that you are accepting payments on a secure platform. Obviously, that your site, it's HTTPS enabled. There are certain things you want to make sure that you get across, because like you said, John, it's a perception thing as well to your customers. And Tom, what about you guys? I mean, you guys are, you're automating my accounts receivable, you're getting involved with my bank, you're updating, transactions. How can I be comfortable that, what you're doing is secure with my data?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we go through, since ours is a hosted cloud-based solution, we go through all of the appropriate SOC audits with all of the different levels of SOC audits, because we're certifying that not only to our customer but to our bank customer in the model that they're doing it. So there's a lot of security requirements around that. Number one. Number two, when we're taking credit card transaction data, all that is tokenized, so we don't store any of that information. And what we find in a lot of cases of businesses, large and small, they still manually take credit card information over the phone like you're talking about, or they say, well, hey, Gene, just email it to me. Well, I absolutely refuse to email a credit card number to anyone. I don't care who it is. So utilizing these tokenized systems and payment portals, such as what Dade Pay provides and what the company may provide, they can actually direct their customer to go make the payment on there and eliminate all that compliance around that security. So tokenization is a big area around that. We also have a capability we didn't talk about today, but it's a mobile capability to accept basically a payment at the point of presentment, and it uses mobile technology that you're familiar today with a consumer deposit capture, maybe from your bank that offers that, where you're capturing a check as an example. But what we do is none of that data is stored. It establishes a secure connection back to our hosted server. All that data is transmitted, and as soon as we receive that data, none of that data is retained on that person's phone. So we have companies that have thousands of people picking up payments in the field, and all of that is secured by utilizing that type of transaction. Now, they still have the physical check in their hand that they have to do something with, but that's the business practice as to how they're going to manage that.
Fair enough.
I want to ask a small question. Earlier that you mentioned that your AI reads emails and it also recognizes attachment. How do you make sure that all of that is secured and probably even anonymized? Because say if I'm a startup owner, I'm using Dade Systems to analyze my accounts and make everything digitized, but I still don't want probably anyone at your company to read my emails and get anything out of it apart from just the meat of it.
Yeah, what we typically do, that's a great question, Ivan. So what we typically do is whoever company it is that's utilizing our product and services, they're receiving those emails anyway. So they're the first eyes to direct that payment into us. So they're merely setting up a forwarding process to forward that to us. So anything that's confidential is stripped out of that, and they just strip us the remittance information.
Got it. And just you guys were talking about, credit card and security. One of the things we have in India, and I think in Europe at some sense as well, is two-factor authentication into payments. In India, everything almost is two-factor authentication,
Yes.
up to a limit of, say, if I'm using certain cards, I don't have to put a PIN number till say 2000 rupees, but anything above that I have to put it. If I'm using UPI, even if I'm paying 1 rupee, I have to use a PIN. So it's not like anyone can come in and automatically deduct anything from my account. So that is, I think, a very foolproof system. It at initial stage, you might find it annoying that, why is this asking me for a PIN, why is this sending me an SMS, why do I have to put a digit number which is generated every time, I can't remember it, I have to look at my phone and put it. But then you understand that this is kind of necessary because it's your money.
Yep,
Yeah, very
great
easy.
point.
And yeah, and two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication is becoming just pretty much pervasive all around the country here, and most people agree. It's still open to some hacking because it's not as hard as we think for hackers to actually get our phone information or transfer our phones to their own phones as well. It's easier than you think. But it's certainly a big step in the right direction. Guys, we only have a few minutes left, so I'm going to put all three of you guys on the spot. I'm going to start with Yvonne and I'm going to end with Tom, because Tom, you're going to have to think about this. I was just wanting, I'd love to hear from you guys just one technology that that you think in 2021 will help small businesses in particular manage their business better. And in the end, it all impacts cash flow. So it goes without saying. Yvonne, you cover this stuff. Tom, John, I'm sure Tom, you're not allowed to use any technologies from Dade Systems. So you're gonna have to really think about this one. Yvonne, let me start with you. I mean, you cover technology for the Next Web. So what app is out there, or mobile app or hardware or device or something that you think, a small business owner, they want to be that much more productive or run their business better, that they should be considering for 2021?
I'm going to say something which has existed for a while, and I mentioned this while we were talking initially before we started the recording, which is as stupid as a QR code. I'm telling you why, because it maintains the distance. You can have QR code on your site, you can regenerate it n number of times. You can even have a static QR code at your shop. I can pay, UPI is integrated, Apple Pay is also QR code based. So that is either QR code or NFC is something where we can avoid contact, we can have minimum amount of friction to pay. And this is not just a B2C transactions, even business accounts can, if they're linked to certain systems, and even startups can facilitate that, like Dade Systems maybe generate QR codes to scan your invoices or scan your account papers. And that provides additional security as well as ease of use. If you have an iPhone, if you have an Android phone today, you don't have to use a special app for that. You just open your camera, scan your QR code, you'll automatically see the link to the app or the website, and you can just follow the process from there.
So QR codes definitely making a comeback for sure. Remember, there was a time where people were all down on QR codes, and now because of COVID, they're all over the place, contactless ordering and all of that. And you're right, it does streamline and potentially streamline a lot of processes within a business. So that's a great piece of advice. All right, John, your turn. What technology would you recommend?
Well, I'm even going to go a little bit further back from QR codes, and I'll cheat a little bit with, I'll just call it cloud web technologies. And specifically, I think around accounting systems. I work with many organizations still today that are working with an installed, something on their server, on their computer accounting system. And as we all know, over the last several months, people have now been working from home. They've been in distributed manners. They've learned what the cloud and web technologies can do to bring people together. And whether it's people that for 20 or 30 years must log into their computer and access their system, that now are working through conference calls and Zoom meetings like this, they're becoming, they're recognizing the power of cloud and web technologies, and I think specifically around cloud and web financial systems by bringing everything together from wherever they are, especially those that are now going to work on mobile devices. I just think it's going to be more and more adopted over the next year.
I couldn't agree with you more, and I have to say, people that are still using desktop systems, it's very old school and very unproductive. And there are great online accounting systems from QuickBooks Online to Xero, FreshBooks, and of course Striven also is a great integrated accounting system. And these are, in 2021, listen, even if you have a desktop system, you can still have it hosted by somebody like Miles Technologies, for example, but you have to be able to give your people access to data, including the owners and managers of your companies. And you're right, when COVID hits, suddenly you only have your systems on somebody's desktop. That really inhibits data analysis and productivity, and in the end, that inhibits your cash flow. Great point. Tom, your turn. What would you recommend? I'm
going to go with an oldie but a goodie. Remote deposit capture 2.0. All right. So what's the 2.0? The 2.0 is the ability to not only make the deposit or scan the check or the payment form, but also the remittance, and be able to get an updated file from that payment. What we find today is there's still a lot of a legacy remote deposit capture, which only handles half the transaction. Yes, I get my deposit into my bank, but I still am left with the coupon or the payment or whatever the invoice is to reconcile that piece of it. Well, 2.0 should be able to, there's enough services out there that can read that remittance information and give you a file back. In every accounting system, and John's point is spot on, all the cloud-based systems allow you to import a payment file, such as what we provide, but you can get that today through your bank, through this remote deposit capture. And the other area that I would put a asterisk below that is mobile remote deposit capture. What we find is many startup businesses or businesses in infancy or businesses with remote locations, they don't have the requirement to want to invest in a $200 scanner from their bank. Their mobile device can do all that. Your mobile device, this mobile device has a higher scanner DPI than any scanner that we can provide through the bank or credit union. So they have the ability to scan a check with just a phenomenal amount of accuracy using that technology. So for those businesses that are just getting involved in this or have remote locations that don't have enough volume, they don't want to spend $200 on a scanner or $500 on a scanner, whoever the provider should be able to offer that is a mobile remote deposit capture.
But the key thing is when you say 2.0 is that it's not just about the financial information, but it's all the remittance information.
That's correct.
That's critical. And you're right. A lot of people they capture the financial and then they're manually keying in the remittance information. That creates a lot of extra work and time. Why not do it all at the same time? And I've got my technology that I'd like to share, and I'm so happy that you guys did not mention this, is Plastiq, of course, right? So we thank you for their sponsorship for this. And again, Plastiq itself, it's plastiq.com with a Q, Plastiq. And again, you can pay any of your vendors using a credit card. If you do it through their service, there is a fee that they involve. And I forget, it's like 2 or 3% or something like it's small, but when you look at the benefits of using the float for your credit card, getting points, purchasing on volume, purchasing from international vendors as well, the benefits significantly outweigh the costs. And I think it is a great cash flow tool, and that's definitely something that I've been recommending to my clients. So guys, thank you. John, Tom, Yvonne, fantastic. Really appreciate all of your great advice. It was really helpful, and I know our audience has as well. So thank you guys for your time, and if you've been watching this, I hope you've gotten some good insights that will help you manage your cash flow better. So my name is Gene Marks. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.